going to run through a series of slides. I have quite a few slides, but I'm just going to sort of do this at breakneck speed. Usually is my way. Okay, so I think it's a really interesting debate today, and quite a controversial one, so this is why we're all in this room. And I'd like this sort of the discussion to extend further. I mean, for me, it's a sense of where the world is going, and this is an image from Blade Runner, and I don't want to live in a world like this. It looks pretty hellish. Constant rain, like outside, overly horrible sort of urban existence, and this is where we're all going to go with our population rises, and this to me is a serious problem. This is what I do like, a walk in a forest, nature, natural, looking outside a window at trees, and I don't want to extinguish those from our existence, and I think this is where we're going on a planet. This statement is really, to me, fundamental as an architect. That's what we're responsible for, and this is what this whole conference is about. And I think it's something that we need to take responsibility for, because that's what we're here to do. And also, we're leaders in this field. We're not followers, we're leaders. We need to set our own agendas, rather than being, in some ways, being put to us by regulation, which to me is deeply depressing. Sustainable and beautiful, what is it? There's always this debate, and I do think when I look at sustainable architecture, is it beautiful? And I think this is what it's I don't know if it is particularly beautiful, and I think I'll tell you why. Because it is just simply an architecture which seems to have a lot of add-ons, and I can look at that building and go, it's a sustainable building. And at the moment, sustainable buildings really look like that, and that's what I think sustainability got itself into, became its own language. And that's what the sustainable architecture referred to. That was the language they used, and that's why in some ways it became problematic in terms of the aesthetics of it, or being used as an example in terms of architecture. I could also blame Christopher Alexander. Amazing mathematician, amazing theoretician, but a pretty lousy painter. Okay, so science and art, I think architecture is the science and art of building. That's it. You have to combine both. If you're going to occupy, you're occupying that horizontal line between those two. You can't ignore one without the other. So does aesthetic needs to be developed for the 21st century that puts sustainability at the core of design? My answer is no. Okay, strategies and tactics. This is where I think sustainability needs to go. There's two sides to sustainability, and I believe that strategies is where we should be moving. So sustainable strategies, what are they? In architecture, teaching the 5th years at the moment, they're moving to the end of their thesis. This is what we set from this ethics and aesthetics of sustainability. Derry Green and Bog, working closely with Bord Lamona. What do you do with these huge depleted boglands? And here's Derry Green and Bogland. And this amazing images of all this energy and all of this stuff that's got sustained Ireland for many years, but now is completely and utterly abandoned. And it is a beautiful landscape. It is a fantastic place. And the students have come up with a series of projects, and I'm just going to show you one image of each and just explain what they are. And this is architects' thinking. This is not about where my solar panel goes. This is what we do as architects. We are visionaries. We are world makers. That's what we're employed to do. That's what we should be doing. So here's one student who's doing a naked eye observatory. It's an incredible image of this space. Another one doing a biodiesel plant. This is Adrian. There's Paul Marr, who's digging out bog ore and making massive steelworks in the middle of the boglands. All the buildings are all about enterprise, all about bringing employment, all about using land sensibly and properly. Graveyard, mass grave burial ground for Dublin, in the centre of the city or for the whole country. Bury thousands of people. If you want to be preserved for 1,000 years, go here. Okay, you don't need to be frozen in some Californian sort of capsule. Bee building. Beekeepers of Ireland don't have a headquarters. Emma is doing a bee centre. Here's all the bees disappearing off into distance. Niall Hard, fantastic. Through ultraviolet light is dealing with reservoir, with water, and how do you take bog water and change it into drinking water? A nacelle factory for turbines, for wind turbines. Amazing space. All designed, all sustainable, all thought through. For me, about architecture. Every tomato that you've ever eaten in Ireland can be grown here. We import all our tomatoes, or the majority of tomatoes. Kevin Coffey, floating series of major floating greenhouses that can be rotated to catch the sun by the wind turbines in the distance. So, sustainable tactics. And again, this is another side to me and to practice, as Michelle said. Boyd-YouTube architects. What are sustainable tactics? For me, looking at a situation of designing a house. Now, we didn't design this house, but it is hideous. Okay, absolutely unsustainable and ghastly. And I don't know, someone might live in it in this room, but I just look at that. Look at that gate, isn't it fantastic? So, what effect do increased requirements for sustainability have on the design aesthetic of the contemporary architecture? Quite a lot. So, I maybe ask Martin, you might. So, here's a house in the field we designed in Summerhill. And it is a house in the Irish field, and that's consistent. I live in Ireland, I design in Ireland, this is my context, that's what we work within. So I look around and I see amazing buildings that are here, simple farm buildings, structures, two parallel forms. I look at a vernacular that exists, and I kind of enjoy the kind of ingenuity of that vernacular, the bar, the attic room, the double-height kitchen space, all of those kind of things. And then I also look at I'm a modernist. I look at modern architecture. Why wouldn't you? And I look at the Farnsworth House and say, what a fantastic place. Building set up, thanks so much, set up to rise above the floodplain. Really clever, beautiful, and a wonderful enclosure where you can just embody nature. You're sitting in nature. As I think Philip Johnson was said about his glass house in Connecticut, it was like a celestial elevator. When it snowed, you felt you were rising out of the earth, rather than embedded into the earth. So these things to me are about modernism and why modernism is wonderful and why we love modern architecture. I'm not building the Earthship, which I can buy off of plans and build, and this is one we went to see in Holland, and you know, that's not what I do. That to me though is sustainable architecture, and why is that? Why should we think that? So back to the field again. So what do? Well, there's a hedge, a hawthorn hedge that was built there, which was already planted. So you use that as part of your design, and you build a house behind that. So you don't have to see the house, because the house is quite big, 400 square meters, so it's a huge house. And how do you break that form down? Well, you sink it into the fields. So you set part of the building is timber framed, slated. One part is stereotonic, sits into the ground, and is rendered insulation. Then also so this is what you start to see with the hedge in front of it. And then there's an orchard, which is planted at a lower area. So this is about this simple form, reducing it in size, and again, simple plan. Mesian in its intention in terms of plan, but each room has glass, each room has a view. And then there's a large terrace, which is sitting to the right, and then a main living space. So all kinds of things we know about how to design, but then it's, again, for me, it's a sustainable design, because actually what it's to do with is hiding it away from the road. So you do not see it. The idea is that you put a big house like that behind something and give it a simple form, and it can be elegant and modern at the same time, and in some ways sustainable in terms of the field. And the grass runs right up to the house through the fencing. And then it sits here, and the idea of using glass, and what I'm kind of interested in terms of what changes would be made to this, and this is why I got the light switched off, is the fact is that you start to reduce the size of glazing. And I think that's a serious problem in terms of sustainability. Why on earth that we would sit in a room which probably maybe just about makes the regulations in terms of light input. But I would actually quite like to sit in a big room with a big glass wall and look out. Actually, that's what I quite like. I quite like that in this climate, because I want to live in a house where I can bathe in natural light and don't have to keep switching on artificial lights all the time. So slated block. And I just string you through. So terrace. Sunken garden, illumination. Again, all for me about how a house like this, as a Corbusian space, can exist in an Irish environment. And then into the house, double-heighted space, back to the Irish cottage, with a platform up above, which is in this case the parlour room, not sleeping accommodation. Double-height space, painted triple glazed windows. And finally, what are we? We are human beings. We occupy that line between earth and sky. And that is what we have to remember, and that's what we enjoy. We enjoy the light coming through this room. It is not some kind of aesthetic debate. That's something that is important. That's something I teach. But primarily, I just want to live in a room that I feel comfortable in. I don't want to live in a cave or a decorated cave. I want to live in a room which defines my existence in this world today, post moon landings, etc. So finally, 2 points we can discuss. Building is a biological process, building is not an aesthetic process, Hans Meyer. And be true. Nature only tolerates truth. Adolf Loos. Thank you.